Would you believe someone that you've caught lying to you previously? Then why would you believe a book that does the same thing? Stay tuned while I diffuse the credibility of the good book itself. We have all known that person who may not be a chronic liar, but is at least habitual. We've all seen this. The person who claimed to be a once member of SEAL Team 6, and then you find out a year later that he was actually in the Army, not the Navy. Now, everyone has probably been guilty of adding flavor to stories of the past, but when you catch someone in an outright lie, their credibility with you is going to be shot down the road. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. We're not going to keep believing you, because you've already placed yourself in huge debt on the credibility report. So many Christian fundamentalists continue to point to the Bible as a source I need to read to reconvert. As I've said in prior videos, the inspiration of this channel came from a conversation with an evangelist who told me I just needed to read scriptures, if only I would read scriptures. And of course, they don't realize that most of us deconverts have read scriptures repeatedly and read the history on them. And anyone who studied the Bible, even with a cursory glance, knows that many times the words of the good book are nothing more than a lie. Yes, there are some things that we can't prove one way or the other, but here's a few examples of outright untruths. And just like that habitual liar that you know, once you catch a few of them, you're very inclined not to believe the rest. Now, first of all, let's look at the Old Testament. My Catholic upbringing stated that this was just symbolic, which I find convenient, since mankind's intellect in the sciences finally caught up with the myths. But the Christian fundamentalist still holds that the literal word of the Old Testament is the inerrant word of God. Well, not when these words are outright lies. The first huge lie in the Old Testament is, of course, the story of Genesis, because we know the world and all its side dishes weren't created in 6 days. We know that unequivocally. To believe this, you would have to disbelieve every single genre of science. You would have to disbelieve the progression of sciences in the last few thousand years. That led to an extensive scientific method, countless retesting and peer reviews of methods before science will claim something as an absolute fact. Scientists do not entertain new information lightly. We know the story of creation is not true, and I have the specifics on that in other videos. Now, we can't say either way that the story of Abraham and his legends surrounding him are fact or fiction. Of course, there is the fable of his wife of old age giving birth, but I can't prove that a miracle didn't happen, but I can definitely prove that the story of creation didn't, as portrayed in Genesis. And of course, that's not really significant in terms of Jesus Christ and his teachings and his resurrection, but the next colossal lie kind of is. It's the story of Exodus, the story that with women and children, 2 million people would have wandered the wilderness for 40 years. We know that's a lie. There's evidence that there were some Hebrew slaves from a few archaeological finds, but there is nothing in Egyptian record or history that suggests that the Hebrews were enslaved globally. And there is no archaeological evidence, none whatsoever, that even remotely suggests that nearly 2 million people wandered the wilderness for 40 years. This is another outright lie. And the story of Exodus being found to be an untruth is much more significant than the story of Genesis being found as so. For this story sets the foundation on the arrival of Christ. It establishes the nation of Israel, the people from which Christ will be born. Later books will give the prophecies of the coming of the Emmanuel. And if the story of Moses never happened as depicted, I'll use a parallel example of one of Christ's own parables. The foundation of your story is built on a very shaky surface. And if you put the framework of the New Testament on this shaky surface, once you start exposing untruths, then the entire structure is going to crumble to the ground. Because if we have 2 major books in the Old Testament that are nothing but mythical fables, which we know for a fact was at least borrowed from Sumerian texts and other cultures, mixed in with the Hebrew, then it doesn't give real believability to a man named Yeshua as being correlated to the Old Testament at all. Now, a modern Christian will tell me that that's just the Old Testament, symbolic as said prior, but I would say the Old Covenant sets up for the New Covenant. But even in the New Testament, I have also found outright lies. The first being the virgin birth described by Matthew as a fulfillment of prophecy in the Old Testament, Isaiah 7:14. because the word for virgin was added later in Greek texts. Now, I've heard the apologists' argument for this. The word for young woman in the original Hebrew script, in Isaiah 7:14, generally means young woman or woman of childbearing age, and there are times in the Bible where this possibly was applied to women of virginity. But the word itself is not used to designate sexual purity or not, and that's what the apologist is twisting. It's like using the phrase a red apple and then stating that all apples are red, when actually some of them are green if you use the word green before apple. The word alma can be used to designate a young woman who is a virgin, but if you were specifically going to note sexual purity, you would use the word betula. And not only does a basic Wikipedia search tell you this, the Hebrew scholars do as well. If you were going to designate a prophecy based on the word virgin, you would not be using the word alma. Not in this context according to everything I've read, and I've read a lot. So that is a major lie of the New Testament relating to Isaiah 7:14. And there's another colossal lie that goes with the same time period. King Herod's supposed killing of all the firstborn, trying to eliminate the Christ figure. There is zero record of King Herod doing this. Even the writings of his closest friend don't mention this at all. And all of his other vile atrocities were documented by those around him and Josephus, as well as other historians. There is no indication whatsoever that King Herod pursued an infant Jesus, and there's no indication that the family was even in Bethlehem. The Bethlehem dwelling part may be an unknown, but the King Herod pursuit is a lie. Now, what the apologists try to do is to extract certain facts, many of them proven archaeologically, and attempt to create truths out of these lies. It's a logical fallacy, taking one truth and trying to create another. And it's an important point, just like in my habitual lying friend example, that when someone tells a lie, usually there does exist an element of truth. We know in Genesis there was a flood, possibly several, in the Mesopotamian area during the Sumerian time. That would be the truth part. The lie part is the Hebrews transforming this fable into a worldwide event. Again, in the story of Exodus, we know that there were probably some Hebrew slaves. We also know that there were many small migrations of Hebrews out of Egypt into what is today Israel. That would be the truth part. The lie part is the fable of the Red Sea splitting and 2 million people wandering the desert for 40 years. And in the New Testament, there is great probable evidence that Jesus existed, that he was tried, and that he was crucified, largely because he was probably becoming a thorn in the side of the Pharisees. They even think they have the bone ossuary of Caiaphas, who supposedly headed the trial. There's good indication to believe there was a Pontius Pilate. All that is the truth part of the story. But there's nothing indicating that there was a virgin birth or this was even prophesied. There's nothing indicating that there were miracles. There's no authorship of the 4 Gospels. In other words, we don't know who wrote the ones that exist today, and the earliest fragment we have is 150 to 250 AD at that. And we know the foundation of the virgin birth prophecy fulfilled in the New Testament, as well as the persecution by King Herod when Christ was an infant, is nothing more than a lie. So the Bible has become nothing more than that person who claims to be a member of SEAL Team 6, who was found out to be never in the Navy to begin with. I have just shown 4 gigantic lies, and as far as the rest of the writings, I may not be able to show that they're untruths, but we can't find any evidence that says they are truths. And when we know that the Bible has a history of habitual lying, why should I believe the rest of it when there's no evidence that the writings are correct? And that, Christian fundamentalists, is why I don't trust the Bible, including the Gospels of the New Testament. Because you're telling me to believe in something that I just proved to be an habitual liar. Now, if you'd like to look at some more videos that attack the credibility of the Christ resurrection, click on the playlist card at the end of the video, and check out my own tale, which at least I admit is fiction, The Second Fall, an offbeat Armageddon sure to offend the evangelical and probably a few others. Link is on the video description as well as the banner, and I will see you next time when we once again take that sword of reason and reality and thrust it right through the heart of ignorance.